The hardest day of Rowan Mercer's life began with what everyone else thought was a harmless joke. By the time the afternoon sun dipped low across the quiet streets of his hometown, one person had nearly lost everything, another had found a reason to keep living, and a simple dare had become the moment that changed 4 lives forever. What started as laughter would end in tears, forgiveness, and a truth that no one saw coming. If you believe that kindness can change lives, that second chances matter, and that hope often appears when we least expect it, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional story. Rowan had always been the dependable friend. At 28, he worked as a landscape architect, loved long weekends restoring old furniture, and preferred quiet conversations over crowded parties. His closest friend, Grant Holloway, was the exact opposite. Grant filled every room with jokes, loved taking risks, and believed life was meant to be lived loudly. Their friendship had survived school, college, and countless embarrassing adventures because they balanced each other perfectly. One warm Saturday morning, they were helping organize a charity fundraiser at the local community center. Families gathered outside under bright blue skies while volunteers arranged tables, planted flowers, and prepared food for visitors. Grant noticed Rowan watching someone quietly arranging books inside a donation tent. It was Grant's younger sister, Eliza. She had returned to town only a few months earlier after leaving a stressful career in another city. She smiled politely at everyone but rarely joined conversations longer than necessary. Grant laughed and nudged Rowan with his elbow. He insisted Rowan should stop pretending he wasn't interested and dared him to ask Eliza out before the fundraiser ended. Everyone nearby laughed, expecting Rowan to refuse like always. Instead, surprising even himself, Rowan accepted the challenge. Grant clapped dramatically, convinced the dare would lead to nothing more than an awkward lunch and endless teasing afterward. But Rowan approached Eliza with genuine respect instead of playful confidence. He offered to help organize the books, carried several heavy boxes without being asked, and spent nearly an hour working beside her before mentioning lunch at a nearby cafe. There were no rehearsed pickup lines or exaggerated compliments. He simply admitted that he enjoyed talking with her and wondered if she would like to spend more time together. To everyone's surprise, including her own, Eliza accepted. Grant nearly dropped the box he was carrying. The lunch felt surprisingly effortless. They talked about childhood memories, favorite novels, forgotten dreams, and the strange pressure people placed on themselves to appear successful. Rowan learned that Eliza had left her high-paying corporate position after months of overwhelming anxiety and emotional exhaustion. She admitted that returning home felt like admitting defeat, even though her family welcomed her with open arms. Rowan didn't offer advice or pretend to understand everything. He simply listened. For someone who had spent years surrounded by people who always tried to fix her, being heard without judgment felt almost unfamiliar. Over the next several weeks, their daytime outings became routine. They explored botanical gardens, visited local art fairs, volunteered together at food drives, and spent long afternoons walking through parks filled with blooming flowers. Every meeting happened beneath bright sunshine, making each memory feel warm and hopeful. Grant continued joking that his silly dare had somehow backfired in the best possible way. Yet beneath the growing happiness, hidden fears quietly waited. Grant began noticing changes in his sister. She smiled more often, laughed more freely, and spoke with new confidence. Instead of celebrating, he felt strangely protective. The harmless dare suddenly seemed real. Rowan was no longer simply his best friend. He was becoming someone deeply important to Eliza. Grant worried that if things ended badly, he could lose both of them. His fears slowly transformed into suspicion. He started questioning Rowan's intentions, wondering whether the relationship had begun as a joke rather than genuine affection. Even though Rowan repeatedly insisted the dare stopped mattering the moment he truly got to know Eliza, Grant struggled to believe it. Then someone made everything worse. Another volunteer casually mentioned hearing about the original dare without explaining how quickly it had lost all meaning. The story reached Eliza in its simplest and cruelest version. She heard only that her brother had dared Rowan to take her out. Nothing else. No context. No explanation. No truth. The words struck like broken glass. Every kind memory suddenly felt fake. Every smile became something she questioned. She remembered accepting the invitation, believing Rowan had sincerely wanted to know her. Now she wondered if she had simply been the punchline to someone else's joke. Without confronting anyone, Eliza quietly disappeared from the fundraiser they were attending that afternoon. Rowan searched everywhere until he found her sitting alone on a bench overlooking a peaceful lake inside the public gardens. Her eyes were filled with disappointment stronger than anger. She couldn't understand how someone who seemed so honest could begin everything because of a dare. Rowan felt his heart sink. He admitted the truth immediately. Yes, Grant had challenged him. Yes, he accepted. But he explained something equally important. The dare lasted only a few seconds. The feelings lasted much longer. He described how his reasons changed the moment she smiled while arranging those donated books. He confessed that every lunch afterward had been his own choice, every conversation completely genuine, every hopeful dream entirely real. Still, trust once broken is difficult to rebuild. Eliza walked away. The following weeks became painfully quiet. Rowan respected her decision and never pressured her. Instead, he focused on volunteering even more often, helping elderly neighbors repair gardens, organizing charity events, and mentoring teenagers interested in environmental design. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He simply refused to let heartbreak make him bitter. Meanwhile, Grant began noticing something else. His sister no longer smiled. She completed daily routines mechanically, avoiding places where she might accidentally meet Rowan. The sadness she had escaped after leaving her stressful career slowly returned. Grant finally understood that his careless joke had created consequences none of them imagined. The guilt became unbearable. Determined to make things right, Grant asked Eliza to accompany him to another community volunteer event held on a bright Sunday afternoon. She reluctantly agreed. When they arrived, she saw Rowan kneeling beside an elderly widower named Walter, carefully rebuilding a wheelchair-accessible garden path that recent storms had damaged. Several volunteers worked nearby, but Rowan never noticed Eliza watching. For hours he worked quietly, smiling warmly whenever Walter shared stories about his late wife, who had loved tending flowers before illness confined her to a wheelchair. When the path was finally finished, Walter wiped tears from his face and hugged Rowan tightly. No cameras. No applause. No audience. Only quiet kindness. Eliza realized that nobody pretending to care would devote entire weekends to strangers expecting nothing in return. Grant finally confessed everything. He admitted the dare had been his idea alone. He admitted Rowan never mocked her. He admitted he had allowed a harmless joke to grow into unnecessary pain because of his own fears. The weight of those words settled heavily over all three of them. Grant apologized without excuses. Not because he wanted forgiveness. Because he knew he owed it. Eliza remained silent for several long moments before turning toward Rowan. She saw exhaustion in his eyes, but also patience. Not once during their weeks apart had he criticized her for leaving. Not once had he blamed Grant publicly. He had simply continued living according to the same values she admired from the beginning. She finally understood that trust isn't proven through perfect beginnings. It's proven through consistent actions after everything falls apart. They decided to start over. Not by pretending the pain never happened, but by acknowledging it honestly. Their renewed friendship developed slowly, carefully, and more honestly than before. Every conversation included openness they had never shared during those exciting first weeks. Rowan admitted his fears of losing both her and Grant. Eliza admitted how deeply past disappointments had shaped her reactions. Grant promised never again to let pride or jokes interfere with people he loved. Months later, the community center held another daytime fundraiser in the same place where everything had begun. Families filled the grounds once again. Children painted colorful signs. Musicians performed cheerful acoustic songs. Flower beds overflowed with bright blossoms planted by volunteers throughout the year. This time there were no dares. No hidden motives. Only gratitude. Grant stood before the crowd and shared a heartfelt speech about how one careless moment had nearly destroyed precious relationships but had ultimately taught him the importance of honesty, accountability, and forgiveness. He publicly thanked Rowan for remaining loyal even after being hurt and thanked his sister for having the courage to trust again despite her fears. Many people listening quietly wiped tears from their eyes. Later that afternoon, Rowan walked with Eliza along the same garden path where she had once walked away from him. Instead of making grand promises, he simply reached for her hand. She smiled and accepted it. The sunlight warmed their faces as they continued forward together, not because their future was guaranteed to be perfect, but because they had learned that lasting love isn't built on flawless beginnings. It grows through patience, truth, humility, and the willingness to forgive when life becomes unexpectedly complicated. Before we reach the end of this story, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever discovered that a misunderstanding changed your life, or do you believe forgiveness is stronger than pride? Leave a meaningful comment below and share the lesson this story reminded you of. Years later, people in town still remembered the fundraiser where a simple dare unexpectedly became the beginning of something beautiful. Whenever new volunteers asked how Rowan and Eliza met, they smiled at each other before telling the story honestly, never hiding the awkward beginning because it reminded them how quickly compassion can transform even the most imperfect circumstances into something extraordinary. Their lives were never defined by a joke. They were defined by the choice to forgive, to grow, and to believe that people are more than the worst mistake they ever made. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May this story remind you that genuine love is not measured by how perfectly it begins, but by how faithfully people choose each other after the truth is revealed. Sometimes the greatest blessings arrive wrapped inside the most unexpected moments, and sometimes one act of forgiveness becomes the very reason a broken heart learns to believe again.